Okay, welcome everybody to Encouragers. My name is Mary, and I'm going to share my story. Whatever God puts in my heart is what I'm going to say. I was born in Toronto at Grace Hospital in 1961. My parents bought a house at Albion and Kipling in Toronto in 1961. My brother was born April 29, 1964. He was born in Grace Hospital, and I'll talk a little bit about my family. Uh, when my brother was 5 years old, he had to have his microvalve replaced. He had heart trouble. I remember my dad would take my brother and I to Sunday school every Sunday at Thistletown United Church. Until I was 13 years old, my dad said, I can choose my own religion, I can choose my own church, I can choose wherever I want to go. I knew there was a God, but I didn't know him. Uh, and as time went on, when my brother was 10 years old, he had to have a second operation on his heart, had to have the mitral valve replaced again. And this time he had a stroke and he ended up in intensive care. His heart was still very weak, so they put a pacemaker on the outside of him. And it worked, so they put it in the lower part of his body, but his body was rejecting it, so they put it up in the upper left side shoulder, and they said it had to be replaced every 10 years. Um, I I grew up in my home. My mom was very physically and verbally abusive towards me, so I had a rough childhood and always looking for peace. I kept saying, God, give me peace, give me peace. When I was 16 years old, there were some friends and they asked me, do you believe in God? Do you know God? And I said, well, I know there's a God. They invited me to their church. And their church, and it was Abundant Life. I received my first Bible from Abundant Life, 1978. I got baptized in the water, and I accepted Jesus in my heart at that time. I spent all my time reading the Bible, praying to God, and they call that the first love of Jesus. But a couple of years later, they told me they were moving, so I stopped going to that church. Well, when I was 18 years old, I used to deliver the Toronto Star. And there was this guy, I went to this guy's apartment, there was a lot of noise, a lot of people talking. When I opened it, he asked me, do you believe in God? I said, yes, I do. Would you like to come to my church? I said, sure, I'll go to your church. Why not? I believe so. It was amazing to go to the church. I got to play my accordion. I was in charge of the music. It was fantastic. But one Saturday night, the pastor had us all get on our knees and start praying to God for hours. He was 5, 6 hours. It didn't matter because he expected us to be baptized in the Holy Spirit and speaking in tongues. Well, sure enough, I got baptized and spoke in tongues. But the problem only began. I discovered they had rules in their church. Girls were not allowed to cut their hair. They had to keep it long. We weren't allowed to wear pants. We weren't allowed to we could not marry an unbeliever. We couldn't get married in a church. And I was told not to listen to my parents because they were non-believers. I discovered it was a Jesus-only church. And the pastor mostly preached from Corinthians and Acts. And I remember Um, and I remember my auntie went to my parents' house, spoke to my parents, and banged them to, said, "You have to believe in God." And my dad kicked them out of the house. And also, I got baptized in Lake Ontario. Well, I left that church. I said, no, I'm sorry. So I started to work at 21. I worked for Beecham, Canada. I started there in 1983 and was there till January 30th, 1994. I met a French guy named David. He invited me to go to Queensway Cathedral. It was huge. It was big, but it was too big for me, so I left. And so then in 1985, my brother invited me to another church, to Our Savior Lutheran Church. We both got involved with evangelists and VBS. We had a great time. Then the pastor moved, and we stayed a while. It was 1988 when I met an Italian guy named Peter. He treated me like a queen, like bought me expensive jewelry, took me to fancy restaurants, but that's not what I wanted. So I worked the midnight shift, and there was this guy named Tom, my husband, and he was interested in 19 years old. And they would say, "You take him." I said, "No, I don't want him. You can have him." I ended up marrying him. In June the 9th, 1990, we had Wesley November the 7th, 1991. After Wesley was born, my dad took sick. He was diagnosed with cirrhosis of the liver, which is a hereditary disease. My dad passed away September 13th, 1993. And in October of 93, my company told me my job was no longer in service. I couldn't deal with it. I was devastated. I disappeared for a year. I couldn't cope with both. In 1995, I was invited to go to St. Mark Lutheran Church in Port Credit. I really enjoyed it. So we moved to Port Credit, and Tyler was born March 25th, 1996. I brought him to church when he was 7 days old. And when Tyler was 8 months old, the doctor said Tyler is not gaining any weight, so he sent us to a pediatrician. The soft spot on his head was not hard, so we were sent to Sick Children's Hospital to the genetics department, where they couldn't find any genetic reason why he was the way he was. They also told me Tyler had multiple sclerosis and that he wouldn't be walking. He started walking when he was 2 years old. I was so scared for him. Then we were sent to the neurologist department. We were on a wait list. When Tyler was 2 years old, he did get to Erin Oak in Mississauga. While we were on a wait list to go see another doctor, when Tyler turned 3, we got an appointment, and they diagnosed Tyler with PDD, pervasive developmental disorder, NOS, otherwise specific. In 2000, my brother asked me if I wanted to move in with them, and they bought a house, and I said sure. But the Lord spoke to me and told me not to do it. But I had already given me my notice, so I moved. In 2001, Children's Aid got involved, and Tom and I signed a volunteer agreement. Tyler and Wesley were put into a foster home. I got them every Sunday for church, and I moved out of my brother's place, and it was a blessing to be alone with Tom. In 2002, starting in February, we had supervised visits with both kids, one on Tuesday and the other one on Thursday. And in March, they told us they observed and told me I was like my mother. And I said, no way, over my dead body. I started putting my trust in God. And on that Sunday, we went to Sherway Gardens. And the boys went and looked at what they wanted to look at. And I walked around by myself. And a voice said to me, your children's aid worker is an angel sent by God. I was like amazed. I can't believe this. It changed. I started to put my trust in God. And God, when we went to court, Joe was more concerned for Wesley. So Tom and I started praying to God. He would be crown ward and I would get Tyler back. Every time Joel had a plan, we would be one step ahead of him. And in May, I did a testimony in my church about God's plan for Wesley. For Wesley, I really put my trust in God. In God. Okay, I lost my train of thought. And God, for Wesley, I really put my trust in God. A week later, the children, they called and told me they visit Lindsay. They were really excited about moving to Lindsay. And I realized that it was God's plan. They had horses and it was a dream come true. Well, I got Tyler back on August 27, 2001. Wesley was really upset with me, but I knew it was God's plan. After that, in October, we got another worker. Our worker just disappeared, just vanished from thin air, and never saw him again. So Wesley did become crown ward, and my family was really upset with me. Told me to get a lawyer and take children's aid to court. But I would speak to God and say, how can I move Wesley? I can't. So Wesley stayed in the same foster home until he was 18 years old. And I believe he was very blessed to be in a good home. In 2003, Tom and I were in a battle, wondering whose brother would pass away first. Tom's brother passed away April 1st, 2003 from leukemia cancer. My brother passed away June 10, 2003 from needing a whole new heart transplant. My life changed. It went downhill after that. I didn't have a car to get around, couldn't get to Port Credit to go to the church, so now I was in search of another church. I was told to try Rexdale Lions Church. So I went there once on a Saturday night, and then I tried a Sunday morning. Then I heard about this knitting class, and one person who was running it knew me from Wesley, and her name was Diane. And she introduced me to Don Dearlove. He was running the food bank at Rexdale Lions Church. And I remember I needed a ride to my dentist, and Don drove me there. And Don helped my family also. So I started going to the food bank and started their church. I brought Tyler along and met Gil, who helped with special needs kids, who was a big help a lot. I did different Bible studies. In 2006, I took a job driving a school bus for special needs kids. It was amazing. I got Tyler to school, so I brought him along. It was fantastic. I didn't have to worry about him. Okay. In 2007, in January, my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she went for a chemo twice. And on Mother's Day, she was choking, and I thought I was going to lose my mom. But she didn't. But Victoria weekend, my mom ended up in the hospital on a Sunday. I got a phone call saying your mother went into cardiac arrest and could be dead by the time you get here. So when I got to the hospital, the doctor took me aside and said, your mother is brain dead. You need to make a decision to take the machines off or keep them on. So I gave it to Jesus and I prayed. And in 2 hours, I told the doctors to unplug everything and let her go. They put her in a pallet carrier, and Gail was with me. I started to pray that the angels were with her, speaking to her about changing her faith. She didn't believe in God. So, and I never left her side until Tuesday morning. Something told me to leave. So my friend came and picked me up and took me home. Around 12:30, I was ready to go back to the hospital, but my phone stopped working. And I was ready to go back my phone. For 25 minutes, we were trying to get my phone to work. Didn't work. We took the battery out, we turned it off, turned it on, nothing would happen. 12:55, my phone rang. They said that my mother just passed away. I was like, what? I believe God was protecting me from whatever was going on in that hospital room. Now my life was changed. I was alone, no family, just Tyler, Wesley, and Tom. In February 2009, Tom was on vacation, so was Tyler. So on the Thursday, they went for a bus ride to Tom's work, and I was driving the school bus Thursday, and I drove my friend home. Tom was in the front seat, and when we were talking, he stopped talking, and he was staring, and I was driving, and I was like, what is going on? Why didn't Tom start, why did he do that? So on the Saturday, Friday, I watched him. Still, he was still the same. On the Saturday morning, I went on my computer, and Tom usually makes the coffee. So he stood at the doorway and stopped, and I said, what's the matter? He couldn't remember what he was supposed to do. I said, you're going to make coffee. Didn't remember how to, so I showed him, and I went online to check dementia and Alzheimer's. So I just watched him. Sunday, he was resting. He woke up, and I said, you have to get your bus ticket for work. So I gave the money, and he went and got the ticket, and I showed him where I put it. And half hour later, he said, Mary, I need to get my bus ticket. I said, you got them. And I was like, what is going on? He asked me, what time do we need to get up? I said, 5. And we went to bed. And every hour, Tom kept waking me up. So I was up. I took him to work and told them that I don't know whether he's going to be able to stay. And to come, but they called me, and I took him to the hospital, where we were there all day in the hospital for a month. They found a spot on the bottom of his left lung, and if it is cancer, the problem will be cleared. It was nothing. In January 2010, we went to Baycrest. He went to Baycrest for 3 months. They said he was diagnosed with limbic encephalitis, which is something in the antibody. There's cancer in the antibody that's causing the seizure. So they asked me to put him into a long-term care home. I couldn't do it. I couldn't bring myself to do it. So I put him in an adult day program, which helped. In September that year, we bought a house. But the Lord spoke to me again and told me not to do it. But I did. From 2010 to 2012, we had nothing but trouble in the house. It was a mistake. In April 2012, I started to have pains in my chest. I thought it was stress, so I ignored it. In May, I started to have trouble breathing. Ended up in emergency. They told me I had congestive heart failure, shortness of breath, and atrial fibrillation. They were going to put a pacemaker in me, but they hadn't yet. Praise God. In 2013, the year that changed my life forever. On November the 6th, I just picked up Tom from the day program, and we went and had to take the recycling bin to the front of the house. So I helped Tom put the bins out. When I went out to the back porch, I got my right foot caught under the step, and I fell. I fell on my leg and landed on my wrist. I tried to get up, couldn't, so I ended up in the hospital, spent 2 weeks there, and had to go to a convalescent home for 3 months. Now what am I going to do? Because I have to deal with Tyler. I figure out where Tyler's going to go and where Tom's going to go. From 2014 to 2018, Tom and I were in a long-term home. I hated every minute being there. I had no choice. Tried to make the best of things. Being in a wheelchair, trying to adjust to my new life, not seeing Tyler. He went into a group home 2014, sold the house, what a year, but tried to find out what I'm supposed to do now. Well, in January 2018, I went to my knitting class in the morning. And when I came back, uh, had lunch, and Dom needed to go to his room. And apparently, he took a seizure, and they came and told me. And around 3, I spoke to Wesley. He was getting ready for school. Tyler called and said he was coming for a visit. I'm like, okay. Tyler came, saw his daddy, gave him a kiss, and said he loved him. And went back home. Okay. After dinner, I noticed the nurse was waiting for the firemen and the ambulance and wondered what was going on. And the nurse came and said Tom went into cardiac arrest, and for half an hour they tried to save him, but they couldn't. So he passed away. I was in shock. Wesley came to be with me, and we told Tyler the next day. Tyler must have known something. He was the last person that got to speak to Tom, speak to his dad, and say goodbye. I was lost. Then on March 27, 2018, my mother-in-law passed away. It was the 4th person she had buried. 2018 to 2020, dealing with COVID. Lost a few friends from the home. I had COVID. I was in jail, but got through it. Started coming to Islington Baptist Church, trying to fit in, but it is hard when you're in a wheelchair. In January 2021, Tyler moved to North York, and they're loving the place, and they are keeping him on the toes. In April 2021, I get a phone call asking me if I was still interested in moving into an apartment. I said yes, but I didn't think I would get it. In May, I got another phone call asking if I can come and look at the apartment. So I asked the director of care if I could go, and they said yes. Wesley came with me, and we looked at it and said this could work for me. Then we had an online interview. Finally, in July, I got the place. I moved in August 2014. Well, I'm on my own, trying to adapt. I thank the Lord for this place. Now we're into 2023. Wow, what a trying year. January 26th, I cut my leg open. Had to have 6 stitches put in my leg. And trust the Lord, it would heal. Had a problem with my hearing aids not working from January to March. I was without my hearing aid. It was horrible. On March the 8th, I was supposed to go get my hearing test done, get my hearing aid, but things changed. I fell and thought of Bruce. I think Tyler pushed me, but anyways. I couldn't get up. Peter, their son, got me up like it was nothing. I was in so much pain. Instead of going to Costco with Tyler and I went to the emergency, ended up with a cast on my right hand, and had to go to the fracture clinic. And they spent a month trying to figure it out. If I had a CAT scan and it showed 2 fractures in my wrist. Well, it'll take 12 weeks to heal. So not much to do, but I watched Jesus of Nazareth, the greatest story ever told, the life of Jesus, watched Daniel, What If, Joshua, the 3, Me Again, Miracles. And on YouTube, I would watch DLM Christian and would spend all day typing out what he would say. Watch Noah's Ark and the Gathering. Really helped me to get close to God and learn Bible verses. I've learned so much in the last 3 months about God and memorizing verses, and I feel like God is speaking to me. When I watch Jesus of Nazareth, I'm typing out every word or Bible verse, and it was a real, real blessing for me that this happened, because if this hadn't happened, I wouldn't be where I am right now. So I've had visions. God has spoken to me many times. Whether we listen or not, that's another story. Um, but anyways, it's been a real blessing to spend free time with the Lord and have a blessing of a day.